As a teen growing up, I was faced with much adversity. I was one of those guys you'd seen those feel sorry for yourself teen flicks. I was a bully victim. Verbally, psychologically, and sometimes physically, I would be bullied by my peers. I didn't have much friends growing up, and because of it, it gave the bullies, even those I tried to be friends with, the right to hurt me the way they did. The names and things they did to me back then is irrelevant right now, but it also impacted me psychologically. I didn't tell my parents about what was going on, and I rather took part in different sporting codes as a means of de-stressing from the name calling and psychological abuse from my peers. At one stage I even remember going through some stages of depression, to such an extent that I self-harmed myself. The way others saw me also influenced the way I saw myself, and because of the bullying I had a very low self-esteem, but no one knew this because I would hide it very well. During my performances on stage, I would come across as a very confident young man, but there was something different about me. I would perform my magic shows with a different accent each and every time. May it be with a British accent or even a Latino accent, my shows were always crazy and over the top, but it never really showed the audience who I was as a person. Eventually, I relearned how to love myself, respect myself, and have a better self-esteem. But I always found it necessary to go on stage as someone else. I would even do talks at school after my matric and motivate the youth, but it didn't have an impact on them. They needed someone on their level to communicate with them, someone from their own community. They weren't interested in some guy acting to be someone who he is not, telling them what to do and how he dealt with the demons of his past, but he still hides behind this mask. But I couldn't give that up, not yet. Years went by and my diary was filling up with birthday parties, weddings and the like, where I was needed to perform. Word got round that I was a great performer. The audience was always left entertained, but it confused many of the kids. I could see them thinking to themselves, who is this weirdo? Why does he speak with such a strange accent during the shows? But afterwards he sounds just like us. For my 21st, I had a few friends and family for a Sunday, some Sunday snacks and a cake, and many of them gave me a monetary gift. I then decided to take that money to save it and to buy 2 bus tickets and 1 plane ticket to various destinations in South Africa. I was going to do a magic show on wheels. I arranged with my aunt in Port Elizabeth for board and lodging, as well as contacted some schools in her area to perform as well as do motivational talks. The talks were impactful, but still it wasn't relevant to the youth. I then travelled to Johannesburg, where I stayed with a few priest friends of mine, and I entertained youth at a youth centre and a school. There again, my talks were good but not impactful, nor did it touch the teens. One of the things which I learned, especially on my last leg of the tour when I travelled to Port Elizabeth with a Gautrain, and then I stayed with a old army buddy of my dad's, and thereafter I hopped onto a Gautrain and headed to Capital Park, where I had stayed with another priest friend of mine who had arranged that I perform at a few youth groups. This time round I decided to sit down and honestly write down a plan what I was going to tell the youth. Instead of telling them about what motivation is, I decided to tell them my own life story. It was difficult to tell them about how I had experienced a low self-esteem, how I was bullied, and how I had learned to love and respect myself all over again. I remember that night quite clearly. The youth opened in prayer, and the youth minister introduced me, and then it was time for me to come and do my thing. And then that night I decided to go onto the stage as myself, as Keenan Williams. I spoke in my own voice, which you're hearing right now. I had fun, I entertained, I motivated, and I left there that night knowing that I didn't only have an impact, but I was also relevant. I was real with those young people, and then from that day onward, I haven't looked back. You see, many people will come into our lives and try to demotivate us and bully us to such an extent that we will believe the things others hurtfully say to us. But once we begin to understand that we are not those things, we can begin our healing. It doesn't happen immediately. It's a process. It took me years to relearn how to love and respect myself all over again. Some days I still feel demotivated and depressed, but I have learned to look beyond, to see my life as a service and as a mission to others. It's cool that I can do all these accents, but I can't hide behind that mask anymore. What mask are you hiding behind? Remember, whatever it is, it will hold you back from being the person you were meant to be.
The Beat.
Your motivation inspiration segment. Motivation inspiration segment on KWM Radio.